Well, hi, Juanita. Happy Wednesday. How you doing?
Hey Corey, I'm doing well, thanks. How are you? Thanks for having me.
You bet. Thanks for coming on the Insync Show. I've got a great topic to talk with you today. Avoiding the hotel tech nightmare. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that. So thanks for coming on.
Thank you. Yeah, it could be quite a headache for
Uh,
hotels.
Before we get rolling here, could you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from?
Sure. I'm working at TTI Technologies right now. I'm an account executive there, and we handle business centers and ID scanners, passport scanners, and such for hotels.
Wonderful. So I'm sure you've heard it all. So what is some of the greatest impacts of both great and poor customer service?
Sure. So, one of the biggest impacts for poor support service would be in the hotel industry, for example. If there are issues with, uh, computers and such in a business center, if you have a company that has terrible support, who ends up taking care of that? Your staff, right? So you upload extra work on your front desk staff having to leave their current to daily tasks to help guests, because obviously you have to help the guests and you take them away from the front desk. And nowadays, I mean, a lot of hotels are short staffed, so that impacts that as well. If they have to leave what they're doing to help customers, it's like a double whammy for your staff, so to speak. I think the greatest thing when you do have good support is that you retain customers long term. It doesn't matter if you're offering something at a super low price. If you can't back that up with great customer service, great support, the
Hmm.
hotel is going to go elsewhere. You're not going to offer them something lower to promise them a headache in the future, so to speak.
Very,
So,
very good point. Absolutely. And because ultimately it is a relationship, right? You might buy a particular product, but we all know these high-tech gadgets, as great as they look, ultimately it's not a matter of if, but when something goes sideways, and suddenly it goes from a everything's going great to, oh my God, we're having an issue. And in that, I think that's exactly where support, it either shines or it comes apart, right?
sure, absolutely. You hear these horror stories about hotels that it's something simple and it takes them not even days, Corey, it takes them weeks to get someone on the line to help solve a problem. And even then, the problem doesn't necessarily get solved.
Right.
So,
Really good point. What is the greatest misconception out there about support?
well, one thing that I do think is that a lot of people think bigger is better. So you have these big corporations, these big companies that
Hmm.
provide a service, and because they're big or they spend a ton of money on, let's say, advertising, so they're known, their name is known.
Sure.
It doesn't necessarily mean that they can provide you with the service and support that you need to run a successful business. That's what makes smaller, like family run, family owned type
Hmm.
companies more, because the reputation of the company is backed by the service and support that we put out there. So we don't, we have almost, let's say another way to put it is like we have a lot more to lose than these huge companies that people think are better because they're well known, you
Very
know.
good point.
Another thing is that, and this is a big misconception with support, a lot of people think it's reactive instead of proactive.
Hmm.
So if you have a great support experience, it means that you're proactively checking on things and monitoring things so that a small issue is dealt with before anyone even knows about it. And nowadays, a lot of this is done remotely. I know, speaking on my company in TTI's point of view, we remotely monitor stuff to make sure everything's running smoothly. And that's a better way to look at support. You know what? You shouldn't have to wait for something to completely collapse before solving a problem for a property, for a hotel or a resort.
Yeah, it's a really good point. Almost, what you just meant, the preventative side, right? Almost like a dentistry's approach to tech.
Yeah,
You're
exactly.
going for cleanings, the x-rays before you have the root canal, and things get crazy. So
Exactly. Exactly. If you floss and brush, you're going to be in and out of that chair, you know?
exactly, because you want to avoid that pain, right? Sitting in that seat, going, you get as soon as the anesthesia comes, you know you're in big trouble,
Exactly.
right? I wanted to quickly touch back on your the fact about family owned and run. Coming from an agency standpoint, we pride ourselves on retention as well. One of the big things that we've heard from some of our clients is that they like to work with smaller agencies because of turnover. You know, with big agencies, you've got a lot of people coming in and out. It could take months to learn the ins and outs of your company,
Right.
thus retraining people. And time is money. If you have to get back on their calls and they've got to relearn exactly what it is about the company, they just feel that that's a huge element that doesn't oftentimes relate directly to reporting. So in your same situation, I'm sure there's clients and others that you've had these long-term relationships with. You guys don't have, I'm assuming you guys don't have much turnover. So knowing the ins and outs of what the machinery and the circumstances are, that's got to be also of value as well. Just a lack of turnover.
Of course, absolutely. It's funny because sometimes that's the last thing people think about is how turnover is going to affect
Right.
the company and the support. And it actually does. It does affect it quite a bit. You know, I had jobs in the past where you would spend weeks training and teaching people how to do a certain job. And then within a week, they would either no call, no show, as it is called in the industry,
Yep.
or they would quit. And, you know, management, everything in the back of our minds, we're like, we just spent a month working with this person, trying to teach them, you know. So turnover does affect, absolutely.
Big time. Well, this is a great segue into the next question I was going to ask you. Ultimately, as we know, owners, management, especially in hospitality, it's about the bottom line, right?
Yeah.
It always comes down to the bottom line. And oftentimes it's hard to make those tangents between an action here and how it translates to revenue and profitability. So
right.
Same with support. How does poor or just support in general translate into the bottom line?
Well, one thing that a lot of people take for granted, I would say, is, especially nowadays, if you book a hotel or a trip, the first thing I do is I hop on TripAdvisor and I look up a property, and I go through the reviews. And, you know, if you have guests that run into issues, whether they run into it, how quickly it's handled, whether it's resolved or whatever, that's the difference between getting a 5-star review on, you know, on these online review sites versus a 1-star review. And people are who are you gonna go to stay at, you know? Absolutely. So that definitely affects your bottom line. You can't underestimate the power of a small review on the internet for a property. And like I mentioned before, if you have poor support, it leads your customers to go somewhere else. You know, renewals, speaking on the business center side of it, renewals are the lifeline of our industry, you know? So, yeah.
Wonderful. We all love a great story, right? And I'm sure you've heard quite a few, probably some not so great of an experience, but can you share your worst horror story you've heard about poor support?
Sure. So I've been with TTI since May. Prior to that, I was in the hotel industry and I was in accounting and so on. So my sales side of my career just started. I'm like a little sales baby, so to speak. And so I would hear these stories here and there from my CEO or my VP of sales or my operations VP. The worst story is there was a hotel that was closed because of the pandemic. So, 2021. And they had a vendor that when they opened and became up and running again, they were billed for their annual support. The vendor waited for payment, received the payment, and then refused to turn the licenses on until they got back payment for the entire time the hotel was closed during the pandemic.
Whoa! Did they know that was that a prompt to get them to pay the first half, and then they said, "Oh, sorry, you're not up to snuff"?
No. So that the hotel paid the invoice that was due current for now. And when they inquired why aren't the licenses on, even though the hotel informed them that they were closing because of the pandemic, they said they wanted back pay for that in order to turn the licenses on. Yeah.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
It's horrible.
Yeah, and especially during that time. I mean, things were so low. I mean, and to get another gut punch like that, that's got to be.
And they were given a heads up. The property handled it correctly right away. They informed all the vendors, if you could put, like, so to say, push the pause button for us until we get up and running again. And some people, some companies, I guess, didn't feel the same way. So.
And I've heard in some instances that some of these properties don't even have a choice, right? Like they're mandated to use one vendor for whatever reason, politics or mandates, that type of thing. Is that true?
There are standards that certain brands have, and I know back in the day they only had like one option to pick from. I find more and more that they're giving these hotels, I'm not going to say multiple options, but more than one. So like nice. 2 or 3. That way they can choose, they don't have to be forced to choose who they pick. And it gives the hotel time to do a little research. It's easy to find out support and service, how good it is, how terrible it is. Nowadays you can look up anything online.
Right. So, thank God.
I know, right? You're not going in blind.
Yes. So Juanita, thank you so much. That was great. Wonderful conversation. Appreciate you spending a few moments with us. Where can people find you?
Visit us at our website at ttitel.com, and you could look up all about the company, the family, the staff, the products that we offer, everything you need. You can reach any one of us through there, and we actually get right back to you.
Refreshing, right?
Yeah, right.
And I'm sure I can find you.
That's one thing that I actually was super pleasantly surprised. The word of mouth with our company in terms of how fast a reaction time we have and how fast a resolve is awesome. Like, I'm really proud of that. And I'm not even on the tech side of it. I'm on the sales side of it.
But ironically, I'm sure from a sales standpoint, makes your job a lot easier, right? When you guys have a great reputation, and it makes for those conversations, and even if blind conversations, I've heard about you guys, heard great things about you guys, is different than, I've heard about you guys.
Yeah, right? Exactly. That's very true.
That's awesome. And I'm sure people can find you on LinkedIn as well, because I think that's you and I have connected and had conversations there as well.
So. Yes, absolutely.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. I look forward to having you on again. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Corey. I really enjoyed myself.
Have a great one. Take care.